because something that Walter said, I think, is particularly important to remind, to reiterate, that Donald Trump, per the law, as a business owner, set aside as president, as a business owner, is not allowed to have prior knowledge of the other bids so that he can undercut those bids in order to get a government contract. The man who went out there and really looked down, I don't remember if he looked up when he said Donald Trump is getting the contract, is not just his acting chief of staff. Mick Mulvaney is the director of the Office of Management and Budget. He's the budget director. It's hard for me to believe, and maybe I could stretch belief, that he would not have prior knowledge himself of what the bids were and of how to undercut them. If, in fact, Mick Mulvaney made it easier for Donald Trump to get this contract because he knew the numbers, would that be a problem for Mick Mulvaney, too?
Of course, it certainly would. I mean, the problem we have here, as Walter Straub said, is there is no sunshine. There's no light being shown on what happened here. And one of our questions should also be, why not? Every time we hear the word perfect out of the White House, it was a perfect call with the Ukrainian president. Now, Mick Mulvaney is saying this was a perfect place serving the needs. It's every time we hear perfect, and we kind of get the suggestion that they're worried and they've got something to hide. If it is so perfect, there should be no reason they wouldn't provide complete transparency into every aspect of this transaction. And when we add to that the pattern, because remember, in 2017, we saw the State Department and U.S. embassies putting up advertisements for Mar-a-Lago. In the UK, so, I mean, this is, how did that happen? Who actually directed and suggested that Mar-a-Lago advertisements go up across government website properties? There is no, so not to mention all the other things we could say, so there's no question that there are no controls. Plus, we have heard all week long in relation to Ukraine, senior members of the administration, including hand-picked people by Donald Trump, say, I didn't feel comfortable, but the president told me to do it. So what is happening here with Mick Mulvaney? Because he was also part of that story.
Because he was part of that. And very quickly, to stay with you for just a moment. So our friend Elie Mystal has a great piece on AboveTheLaw.com, which I recommend everybody read, where he talks about the fact that it's more than just the emoluments clause with this Doral situation. He reprints from Title 48 of the U.S. Code, the U.S. Code, and it says, except as specified in 3.602, and this is part of the law, a contracting officer shall not knowingly award a contract to a government employee or to a business concern of another organization owned or substantially owned or controlled by one or more government employees. This policy is intended to avoid any conflict of interest that might arise between the employee's interests and the government's duties, and to avoid the appearance of favoritism, of preferential treatment by the government towards its employees. I can't think of any greater conflict of interest than the president of the United States owning the resort, where 6 foreign governments will now have to decide if they want to take the risk of becoming a part of an emoluments clause situation by paying the Trump organization, run by his kids, with no transparency as to whether he still openly and knowingly gets profit and knows what the books look like. Nobody has any proof of whether he sees the books every month. He now gets it. The kids get it. This is the business owned. Their surname is all they do for a living. It's not like the kids have some extra separate form of income. Their income is him. And so now you're saying, that, how is he not violating this law?
It's really scary when we have to have this kind of conversation about the operation of government, because it's the first time. Just remember, it doesn't even matter in this case that he doesn't have a blind trust, because everyone knows, including him, what properties he owns.
What do his kids do for a living other than be his kids and run his businesses?
Exactly.
Please explain what is their separate job skills.
And this is the same president who won't release his tax return.
Correct.
So all of this indicates significant concern about the integrity of the operation of government and whether a public servant, and in this case the highest public servant, is using it for his own personal gain.
Let's go to David Smiley on this, because the actual facility at Doral is one of Donald Trump's biggest assets. but it hasn't been doing well. Can you talk a little bit about the condition and the status of this resort, Doral, and how it could it, in your mind, just as a journalist looking at it, does it make sense to you to say this is the perfect